hey there, I'm doing something a little different because normally I would be posting reviews or interviews or a Weekend Warrior show about movies coming out on the weekend. But actually, this is going to be different because this is not a movie that's coming out this weekend, but it is a movie that's playing the South by Southwest Film Festival. The South by Southwest Film Festival starts on Thursday, March 12th. This movie will premiere that night. I used to go to the South by Southwest Film Festival. I really enjoyed the film festival. It's pretty corporate, to be honest. I mean, there's a lot of movies, like a big studio movies, big genre movies, a lot of big movies, but there are also some great documentaries, and that's the case with Beyond the Duplex Planet, which is premiering there on Thursday night, September 12th. It's a really kind of interesting film for me because it kind of took me back a little bit to the 90s. In the 90s, I read a lot more independent comics. I read a lot more comics from Fantagraphics, and one of them was called Duplex Planet Illustrated. It was brought from a magazine by David Greenberger. In 1979, he started working at a nursing home called Duplex Nursing Home. He started just interacting with the people there and writing down what they would say. And he eventually just like started publishing what they would say on various topics. There were a lot of really interesting people in this nursing home, and they said a lot of really interesting things. And the way he presented it, it was very artistic, and it became something where like it just kind of grew and grew a cult audience, including the people of Fantagraphics. And when they started illustrating them, they had like people like Dan Clowes and other Fantagraphics artists illustrating some of the stories of the patrons. These people started getting more and more famous. David started getting more and more famous. I mean, REM and Michael Stipe was a huge fan of the Duplex Planet and of David's stuff. And that brings us to 2026. And we have a new documentary from filmmaker Beth Harrington, who didn't really know her work that well too much, but I guess she's a Boston, Massachusetts person who has done for stuff for PBS there. She knew David for a long time. She actually played with Jonathan Richman in The Modern Lovers in the 70s, which is amazing. But we mainly talked about the new documentary, and we talked about the Duplex Planet, and we talked about how Beth started telling David's story, and that included having access to all of his answering machine message tapes, which he'd been collecting for decades and decades, and had all sorts of amazing people leaving message for him on there. But it's a great doc. It will premiere at South by Southwest Film Festival tonight, which is Thursday, September 12th. It'll play a couple more shows over the week if you have a chance to see it and you're there in Austin, Texas, obviously. But if not, we'll see what happens with it. We'll see who ends up releasing it, hopefully this year. It's a really wonderful doc. It really got me thinking about a lot of things, including my own parents and the amount of time I spent sitting down talking to them, and just makes you think that like you should really appreciate the older generation, people in the 80s and 90s in your life. And if you have a chance to sit down and talk with them about their lives and talk to them about other things, it'll make them happy. It'll make you better for it. Anyway, let's get to this interview with Beth Harrington and David Greenberger.
When I grow too old to dream, I'll have you to remember. When I
Who invented sitting down?
It was a good idea, whoever invented it.
Who invented sitting down?
Edison.
Who invented sitting down?
Geez, Einstein, it must be me.
And this is the little publication. That's it.
I didn't have a background in social work at all. I had a background in the arts.
Of all the things that were explored in 70s and 80s art, the idea of aging, with the Who screaming, "Hope I die before I get old," that was a subject that he had no competition.
Well, welcome to the Weekend Warrior Show. Beth, it's so nice to meet you. David, we've been talking David and I have got a little bit of warm up, getting to know each other before you got here. So
Great.
we talked about a lot of different things, but we're going to talk about some of the stuff again, I'm sure. Yeah, but this is one Beyond the Duplex Planet. It's going to premiere at South by Southwest on the 13th. I
The
was
12th.
Oh, 12th. Okay, good. I'm glad you corrected that. It's good. When Sylvia reached out about it, I was like, oh yeah, Duplex Planet. I vaguely remember that. I definitely read it in the 90s when it was when the illustrated version was published by Fantagraphics, and as I told David, I think I read an interview with him in the Comics Journal around that time.
Mm-hmm.
It was because they were all connected at the time. But so I was very familiar with it, but I kind of lost track of it. So when I found out you made a movie about David and the Duplex Planet, and, so and I learned a lot of new things I never knew about. I never knew about the music stuff, which you also have a music background. So I guess let's just start. How did this come about? I mean, did you guys know each other from the music scene around that time, from the 70s even, or
Yeah,
80s?
we go back to the late 70s. I was trying to sort out like how we actually met. I think it was through a mutual friend, Eddie Gordetsky, and David and I don't really remember the moment that we met, but I do remember a very early stroll we took around my neighborhood talking about what David was doing, and I was really jazzed by it because I was a young, kind of out of communications school, kind of in the music scene, trying to figure stuff out. And, I think a lot of us were trying to figure out what being creative meant at that point. We all had day jobs and David had figured out how to make his day job his art. And I that was pretty great. That was the beginning of it, but we've stayed in touch. It's that, that's 40 something years now, closing in on 50 years, I guess. We go way back, and the with film itself came up because, well, it's been in the back of my mind for a while, and I realized after a nice conversation I had with David about my dad, who had developed dementia. This was a while ago now, he's gone, but when that really was starting to really come clear to me that something else had to be done for my father and was moving him to the Pacific Northwest, where I live now. I was talking to David about it, and I got off the phone and went, that guy knows so much, but it's not ever dispensed in a way that feels like he's giving you advice or telling you what to do. And I've just felt really good about the whole thing. And then the thought popped in my head again. Somebody should make a longer film about David, and I decided it was going to be me. So I called him back and said, "You want to do this?" And that was, I think, 2016.
Hey, David, what goes through your head when this woman, this filmmaker you've known for a long time, says, "You know what? I think it's time to make a film about you." And what goes through your head? You go like, "Oh yeah, I have so much stuff I want to like share," or you go like, "I don't want my." I mean, I'm a private. I don't know if you're a private person normally, or you are these days. But what goes through your head when you hear this?
Well, I guess it was like it's an expanded version of the idea that I mean, I've been there's been press coverage of me and I've been interviewed a lot, and so this felt like a bigger story in a different format. So it wasn't like, wait, what do I say? So I understand, and we had like a preliminary time where Beth came out for a visit, maybe for a weekend or something,
Yeah.
and visited us and just recorded our conversations to just sort of give you just something to think about.
Yeah,
But it all
audio.
just felt
Yeah,
it
audio.
felt
Yeah.
just like how we would have conversations. And then
Hmm.
I just started sending her way more stuff than she needed. That took her years to wade through because I have a lot of stuff. I got a lot of file cabinets.
Yeah.
It's what's known as an embarrassment of riches, but it's great. It's the best problem to have as a filmmaker is to have the kind of resources that David has. He's kept all this stuff in a largely orderly way, I might add. He can put his hands on things. And so anything I could think up, like, hey, do you happen to have a picture of you doing, he would find something and send it to me. So, yeah, that was a great process. That was cool.
David, do you have an archivist background? Did you train to be an archivist? And just
No, I think it's just the nature of my parents. They're from an era of my mother always kept scrapbooks, and my father kept lists. He had a list of like every job and what he was paid back to when he was a kid. So I just thought, I guess that's what you do. You make a list. It all just seemed very normal to me, and so I would just say that's from my parents. And my mother would keep scrapbooks, but she's from an era when I think people kept scrapbooks, like for her college years when she'd go to camp in like I don't know, the late 30s, early 40s. There's all these scrapbooks of that stuff, and then scrapbooks of our family. Like they had these scrapbooks that she got, I guess when before I was born, and they were like a scrapbook in a slipcase. And she thought these were great, and you could get a title thing put on the spine, and it was called the whole series. There's five of them, and then they stopped making them. And she was, oh, what am I going to do now? But I have those now. They're the happy years, so it's like something like now we are three was the one where I show up, and I don't know what the one when my sister Jan emerged, and twins make six. The school years begin, and they're all titled, and then they're all the photos are in there with photo mounting corners, not those photo destroying pages that people say, well, this is easier. And
Oh
then
yeah,
after a while,
yeah. I remember
Plastic.
those.
there's like stripes of decay in it from the thing. So, my mother would just always kept scrapbooks. I tried doing that as well, but was not suited to the linear book setup because I would put some things in a scrapbook and then I'd find a photo like it would be me with I had a Brownie Hawkeye camera, so I was a kid doing this. And it's like, oh, that this photo should have been in before that one. And it was like the whole thing was bothering me. And I put a note that should have been in 2 pages back. Nobody cares about this. And so I finally just stopped doing it at all.
Wow, wow. It's amazing what people did before the internet and before like hard drives and things like that. And actually, hard drives are very unreliable, as I found out myself with all my music over the years. Is like hard, yeah, hard.
Yeah.
You keep stuff in a box with the store, photos. It's like they're there, So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But David, I do want to go back to 1979. I don't know how old were you in 1979. What kind of led to, because you have this job and you just start talking to the people at the retirement home. Is it a retirement home? What's the official thing? I know there's different.
Nursing home. Its
Nursing
official
home.
name was
Okay.
the duplex nursing home.
Okay. All right. So
That
so
was the
you're
term that was used all the time until, as we do in our culture, it's like, ooh, we don't like that. We'll just change the word.
yeah.
He's not 90 years old. He's 90 years young. It's like, that's the stupidest thing you can say. If young and old are ends of a spectrum, why say the wrong word? There's no value, but it's presuming that there's a value judgment, like oh, old isn't as good as
Mhm.
young. It's like, well,
Mhm.
But wait, so you got a job at a nursing home. I don't know, how old were you when you got that
I
job?
was 25
25.
or
Okay.
just
So
on the just turning 25.
you got it. So you're out of college, I assume. Or you
Yeah,
just
I
looking for a job. Okay.
Yeah, and I'd had sort of miscellaneous jobs, scooping ice cream or, delivering flowers. And I knew that I needed to get a job. And somebody that I'd gone to art school in Boston and got a degree in painting, and it's served me really well. And uh, so I needed a job, and there was somebody who'd gone to Mass Art who was working at this nursing home and was going to be leaving. So I went and applied for the job, and you didn't have to have a degree in anything particular to it. It was like a minimum wage job or something, close to it. I don't remember what it was back then, $4 an hour or something. In fact, they paid me less because, I was an art school guy, not a social worker or something. And, but the other thing that it sort of fueled my desire for that job was that I'd had an experience of taking I drove my grandmother's car for her across country. She would spend the winters in Palm Springs, but lived in Chicago, and she'd fly one of her grandchildren out to Palm Springs to get her Oldsmobile and drive it back across to Chicago while she could have made the drive. She was old to me, but I realized, oh, she's younger than I am now for sure. But her older sister was out there and they'd fly. So anyway, she gave me pocket money and I drove the car back. But while there, you'd spend a couple days at her place in Palm Springs, and she had a friend. There was a couple named the Feitlers, Herb and Hannah Feitler, who were, I think, childhood friends of hers. And so Herb and I spent a couple days. It's lost its accuracy in my mind. It might have just been an afternoon, but we went to buy fish for dinner, and we drove around, and we went to some flea markets, and he was just kind of cool. And I realized it's the first time I hung out with somebody who was 2 generations older than me that wasn't a relative.
Mm.
And so the dynamic was really exactly like anybody any age. He was like, "Oh, like, oh, what are you gonna do? Or what do you paint?" Whereas my grandmother would be like, "Are you gonna be able to get a job?" So you need the people who are worrying about you, but then you need most of the other people are just like, "Really? What's that? What are you doing?" And so I came back home and was writing to him, and he'd write to me, and I thought I'd like to meet more people who aren't my relatives who are old because there's something about that I feel like is I didn't know specifically what I was getting from it, but I knew I was getting something that was meaningful to me. And so as soon as I set foot in the nursing home on the first day, I was like, wow, the cool things everybody sang. And it wasn't their historical record. It was it was the off camera sort of spoken non sequitur, and
Mm.
I started writing these down. And so then the duplex planet started out of that because I had to come up with stuff to do. Um, and I thought, oh, I'll do this little. They had done something like the duplex news or something. I found it was 8.5 by 11 pages stapled in the corner. I thought I could do that, but I'll call it the duplex planet, like the Daily Planet. And so the first issue was done like that, and I printed it in the office. But then friends were reading it as something that you didn't need to be there to know. They were reading it on its own, and I then felt like, actually, I told some friends that I'd gone to high school with, heard that I was doing this. This is maybe after a year, but I started that pretty much right away, and not knowing why or what I was doing with it. And friends that I'd gone to high school with, when they heard about it, maybe a year later, because it was getting a little bit of traction and getting written about in a couple of art magazines, they said, "Oh, well, of course you're doing that. That's what you did in high school." I thought, "Wait, oh, right." So then I realized I was writing down stuff that people would say then that were also sort of bits of overheard, slivered bits of conversation.
Well, I can definitely understand that story you said told about the because I actually became friends with some of my father's friends who are in their 80s. Like, I went to the opera with one of my father's friends, and we would get lunch and dinner. There was another guy who I met who was like a famous composer who like he actually was in this lived in the same place my father did, but he was born a year later, and so he was also in his 80s. But anyway, that's I definitely relate to that story. So Beth, you've known David for so long. What were some of the things that you really want to know about him that maybe you didn't know from the press he had done or from just reading the books and
That's
stuff?
a good question. Yeah, I think what's interesting about the relationship I've had with David is that, there are friends in life that and the friendship really depends upon a lot of contact to keep it going. And then there were those friends that you kind of pick up and you start talking about things. And certainly David and I, even when we were in Boston, were kind of interconnected but different spheres. And it wasn't like we spent all our
I don't think
time
I saw you
together.
that regularly, but
Yeah,
there was never sort of like a reintroduction. It would just start from
right.
that moment and move forward.
Right. And so when you moved to New York and I was traveling with a band and there's this sort of period where you're young and you think there's all the time in the world and you don't notice how fast it's going. And I eventually moved to the Pacific Northwest. But David, as I think is a really important part of the film, is, a very good connector. He's the glue. In my family, we say he's the straw that stirs the drink. He's there's a person who that is keeping in touch with people and not in like a gossipy, maveny kind of way, but in a way that's just feels organic. And so he checked in periodically. But there were big chunks of his life that I didn't. I mean, I knew the headlines, but I didn't know the emotional part of it underneath for him. I certainly tracked, the books and the performances and the things he was doing. There was the period that the film depicts about David kind of being on Conan O'Brien and, being in Vanity Fair. And I really wasn't around then to know, was that fun? Was it challenging? Was it trying? Like I just didn't know that kind of stuff. And, personal stuff, details of his life. And it's certainly, again, broad strokes. I knew he had a daughter and I knew he was raising her largely by himself for a while. And, I didn't know really what that meant for him. I assumed it was tricky. So it was something like I knew the broad strokes, but I didn't know the specifics. So the trick, of course, for me was to make sure that I didn't we've talked about it quite a bit, that we didn't fall into sort of a shorthand that we both have. We're talking about people we both know or scenes we both know. Um, that can really flatten things for the film. I need him to tell the stories in their fullness so someone who's not inside baseball knows what we're talking about. But generally, it was a lot of it was David filling me in on his life. And places that I wasn't that familiar with. And then just revisiting it visually, like he just has all this cool stuff that we were able to use, VHS tapes and the audio cassettes from his tape machine, his answering
Yes.
machine, stuff like that. So that helped fill in the gaps for me when we were working together on
And this is a good segue because the next thing I
Yeah.
was going to ask is about the answering machine tapes.
it.
We talked a little about the archive answering machine tapes. That's got to be a new level of, I mean, again, I'm not sure. I've only had an answering machine for maybe 7, 8, 10, 9 years in my life. I don't know how long, but like
Mhm.
saving the tapes, I can understand why. I mean, I have messages on my phone from my mother who passed away. I've saved messages on my phone where I only have 20 messages total, but like 18 of them are ones I just don't want to erase. So I can understand that. So let's talk about these answer machine messages. Who was the one who said, okay, let's put some of those in there? David, you know where these things are if you need them? Beth, were there specific things you asked for?
Well, uh, I mean, I don't want to cut David off, but
No, no, you go ahead.
one of the things that happened was I was on the phone with David early on in this discussion about making the film. And we're having the conversation, and partway, we talk for like a minute. Hey, how's it going? What's going on? Want to talk about the thing? Beep. And I'm like, oh. And it was the first, in the way that used to happen. The first part of your conversation is recorded, even if you pick up, right?
Oh, because I couldn't get to the answering machine. It was
Oh,
in
of
another
course.
Right.
place.
Yeah.
So normally
You could
you could
turn, yeah,
stop
you
that.
could
It was in
hit
the
stop.
basement and I was out back. Yeah.
Right. So I became really aware all of a sudden, like, oh, you still have an answering machine,
That was
which I
exactly my
wasn't
thought too.
aware of.
That was my thought.
Yeah. And then, when I went to visit that first visit, he showed me the setup and showed me the thing that we show in the film, that it's a little trickier to use than you might imagine. Um, and then he showed me the backlog of tapes. And at that point, I was like, geez, there's got to be great stuff in there. But then, I spent, and I got an intern for a while. This guy Benjamin helped me, and
Oh,
we listened to these tapes. You have to listen to them kind of in real time.
Hmm.
They're cassettes that you can't really fast forward and listen to like you can with, scrubbing audio now. So we listened to a lot of tapes, and a lot of them are kind of like, "Oh, hi, David. I'll meet you downstairs in a half an hour." And some of them were like, "Oh, it's George Carlin calling David," or
Wow.
"Oh, it's these offers coming in from these places," and "Oh, it's his parents," and that it really was rich. And I mean, I have to admit, we didn't get through everything, but we got through enough that I felt like we could tell the story with a lot of it. So.
Did you digitize them all at the same time? Did you just like immediately digitize all of them, or you spend time?
No, in fact, we didn't digitize everything. I mean, I just took notes of things because even digitizing it would have cost a fortune, and
Mm.
this was a very low budget film. So, so we listened. This guy Benjamin and I listened to all of it, and I looked at dates and kind of roughly knew, oh, this is a period I might want to listen to. But that was a
right.
that was a very time consuming part of the process.
I
But
put the dates on the tapes on it would say
yes,
from September 12th to whatever. And yeah, you've
1989 to
you've
19.
listened to more of it than probably anybody ever will, unless after I'm gone, somebody decides and like, oh, I'll listen to these. But
Yeah.
I've never listened to them. And the one time you were asking about, I referenced somebody or other calling, and Norman Lear, and you
Yeah.
said, could you find that? Because I remember one time he left a message, and I think I had some ridiculous outgoing message about. I can't remember. I had some ridiculous ones about, that the thing's not working, just talk loud and I'll hear it and I'll come, or something like that. So I knew about what dates that I had some interactions with him. And so I thought, well, I'll look for it. And I started playing the tapes and it was too weird for me. I
Yeah.
couldn't do it. And I sent more of them to you. The thing that I found sort of just emotionally sidelining me in some way were the normal things like Norabelle, my daughter Norabelle's a friend's mother saying, "Tell Emma it's time to come home." And so those things were like really weird. It felt like I don't know if I was supposed to ever hear this again. It's the mundane things sometimes that
Yeah.
are so ordinary that it seems like they would. We're used to snapshots, but this one felt like something else, and it felt like it was like this is I can't keep doing it.
Yeah, the power of the audio thing is very different than like even like looking at an old home movie or something. I mean, I even felt a little of that because again, some of the folks David knows are people I know, and hearing their voices from, you know, 30, 35 years ago,
Mm.
I was like, oh, that's Eddie. That's
Yeah,
David Bieber. That's, oh, you know, like that's when we were young.
yeah.
It's interesting.
I think we're aware when our picture is being taken or when we're being recorded like this, we're aware of that.
Mm.
But this is a time when it's nobody's aware, nobody's thinking about this is going to be listened to in 30 years,
Mm.
which would actually really make it difficult. You know,
Right,
can you
right. Oh,
imagine leaving a
totally.
message when you're told that this will be available online shortly? Everyone will know what you're saying.
Yeah.
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 Do,
I think
do,
that's what caught me when when I realized that first conversation we were having about the film was recorded. I was like, even a piece of it, I was like, oh, that's weird. And I intended to go back and listen to that, and I never did, but
Yeah,
it's there
that
somewhere.
would happen once in a while. Mostly it was people leaving messages, but
Yeah.
that was just sort of a byproduct. Was
Yeah.
sometimes that would happen.
Yeah.
And occasionally I was glad that I had there was a call from Robert Wyatt.
Mm.
So it's like that ended up, it's like, oh man, because normally I wouldn't have. So I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I think I marked on the tape that that's on there but I'm never going to go back to it. So,
well, one of the amazing things about the stuff you did, the Duplex Planet, is that it kind of blew up to the point where you have REM getting one of the guys to do the artwork. You have Michael Stipe doing a tribute to one of them, reading their poems. It's really amazing because I think, I've spoken to Daniel Clowes before, and obviously the Ghost World movie did a lot for him and making him. But I mean, this is a completely different level in some way. Did you ever see that coming, or what was sort of like your impression when that was all going on?
I don't know. It's just happening. But on one aside, in Ghost World, the Duplex Planet's in there. There's a
I know.
scene
I saw
where
that.
there's somebody, and actually, there's a continuity issue where they shot it again, and there's a different issue. He's putting the issues in, and they did the scene again. It's like the issues were mixed up. It wasn't what was just there. But I'm probably the only one who would notice that. Um, but I don't. I think it was just they were all sort of contemporaries, and absenting the marketplace variations of how a commercial success, I think most people who are really truly artists in some way um, respond to other people who are artists and having nothing to do with the variation in where they both might be commercially. You know, like Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top called and invited me to a thing. He was getting the Duplex Planet. It's like, oh, we're doing this big. Will you come pick me up? I want to see some of the Brookings originals.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
so it was like, yeah, okay, it just was all that he was just responding. I'm just some guy doing this. It had nothing to do with, I'm selling out this and I don't know what you're doing. It has nothing to do with that. And I think the people respect or feel a connection with treat me like I'm just a contemporary, just doing something. We're just dealing with the same thing with ideas and trying to put them into the public realm. And a success at doing that it commercially exists separately from success at saying what you want to say.
But I do want to ask because one of the things is that obviously when you meet all these people at the Duplex nursing home, they're all older than you. They're all going to eventually die. The movie also talks about COVID and how COVID affected everything you do. I mean, how is it for you to have to like know this, to know that the people you're getting close to are eventually going to pass away? I mean, I don't know how much contact you were able to stay with them when you left the nursing home.
Well, people early on, there were people who died that I was used to seeing, and so it's their last home. So I'm aware of that. And I think as time has gone on in the decades since then, it's more the shock of, people that you're sort of moving through time with who all of a sudden, drop dead from something. And so there's the shocks that hit us. But in the case of the people at the nursing home, it's sort of understood that It's there, and it's not a topic of conversation really. I think when people are acutely aware of their mortality, because of whatever's going on with them, they they carry that with them all the time, and they don't really necessarily want to talk about it. They'd rather talk about something that puts them still out in the active part of the world, just even if that active part of the world is just having a conversation that's new ideas that they hadn't talked about before, or some guy, some goofy guy asking them stuff that makes them wonder about what my sanity, not their condition.
I mean, it's really kind of an inspirational film. It really gets you thinking about, the people of that age. And I mean, both my parents are dead, so I don't really have them in my life. But I mean, it still make you think, okay, if you meet someone who's in their 80s, 90s, sit down and talk to them, because I'm sure they'd love to talk. And I think that's something, hopefully, South by Southwest, a lot of young people, hopefully they'll get that out of the movie for sure. And thanks, guys. Appreciate it. I could probably talk to you guys about music for like an hour, because I have so many. I'm so interested in the fact that it was a Captain Beefheart cover band. That's got to be the most esoteric
I agree.
idea for a band ever. But so nice to meet you guys. Have fun at South by Southwest.
Thank you.
And I can't wait for more people to see this movie and
Thank you.
talk about it. So, David, nice to meet you too, and Beth,
You too.
great meeting. And
Appreciate it.
hopefully we'll talk again in the future. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye.
He would talk to people and then somehow make things out of it. And I thought, well, that's almost out there where the buses don't run,
The very bizarre author, David Greenberger, is with us tonight, ladies and gentlemen.
Hi, David. Hi, David. Vanity Fair. Okay, the magazine.
Greenberger, it's Mark the Boston Phoenix.
For New York Magazine. And at Rolling Stone
I was
today.
like the cool guy for a little while.
God, you're fucking famous. You're probably out doing Las Vegas, the Palms, or something like that,
That wasn't me. I wanted people to have this experience that would be an art experience where they wouldn't have their bearings.
David has found this way to get so much humanity into his art. I feel this very, very human touch. I feel David very close to the people he's talking to. And I don't know what happens when that's taken away. I guess we find out.
Hello.
How do you know that you're getting old? When you have lunch with David Greenberger and he pulls out a notebook.
I'm finding as I've gotten older, the age differential was there, but that was never the subject matter. So it's really about the mechanics of getting to know somebody else.
When I grow too old to dream, your love will live in my heart.